Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this workshop from Temple City Council. It is 2:35 on September 16th. Let's just go ahead and jump right in. Any public comments today? Don't see any. So we'll move right on to item number 2, which is, are we going to discuss the agenda item? That's on this. Maybe go ahead and discuss them anyway.
I think it's fine. I mean,
It's kind of standard operating procedure.
and it's, you've already got the agenda. It's posted. It has the same.
All right, council, any questions or comments on either the consent or the regular agenda? None?
Mayor, I just have two real quick notes. Item number 4 and item number 6 on the regular agenda are on the regular agenda for voting purposes, to allow council members who have conflicts to abstain. So we're happy to provide a presentation on those items if desired, but the reason that we have them on the agenda, the regular agenda, is for voting purposes.
4 and 6, you said?
Yes, ma'am. 4 is the second reading
Right,
of the annexation, and 6 is a contract.
right.
Okay, very good. Anything else?
Not for me.
Nope. All right, then let's move on to receive the presentation on the Temple Airport FBO performance audit and management analysis.
Thank you, Mayor. As you will all probably recall, a few months ago, staff commissioned a performance audit and analysis of our FBO at the Temple Airport, and that report was completed a few weeks ago, and I have asked Michael Hodges with ABS Consulting to be here today to give you an overview of the report and answer any questions that you may have. So with that, I will turn it over. I am going to pass out a copy in case you didn't bring one.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. As Brent said, I'm Michael Hodges. I'm the president, CEO of Airport Business Solutions, and we are a pretty diverse aviation consulting firm. We do a lot of work in the general aviation arena, as well as really just about everything outside of negotiating commercial airline agreements. We've done work for airports. The interesting part for this particular project is that I actually have a separate company called Aviation that actually manages general aviation airports and FBOs under contract for municipal entities. So have a pretty good in-depth knowledge of the FBO industry and small general aviation airports and how the dynamics work within the FBO piece of the airport operation. So as Brent said, we were engaged to provide an FBO performance audit, as well as analyze the various management alternatives for the airport, those being the airport running the FBO as they do now, operating, hiring somebody under a management contract to run the day-to-day operations of the airport, or a third-party kind of lease and operating agreement. So those were the things we looked at, the alternatives. As part of this analysis, we started out with really an on-site review, getting familiar with the airport, the FBO, and the general area, looking at the overall marketplace, the other airports in the region, and their FBO operations there, the different types of operations they have there, reviewing the history of the airport operations-wise, fuel volumes, based aircraft, those type of statistical analyses. We talked to a number of the tenants, the major tenants, interviewed them to kind of get their input on the performance of the FBO, what we always kind of classify, that's the good, the bad, and the ugly, determining what the FBO is doing well, what they're somewhat lacking, and where there's a lot of areas for improvement. So to kind of start out, I mean, some of the things we found from a positive standpoint, the Temple Airport is a really kind of a jewel out there for general aviation airports, not only in Texas, but throughout the country. I mean, the infrastructure that you have out there is well beyond what you typically find for a community of this size and an airport with this activity levels. The runways, the navigation aids, the taxiway infrastructure, everything is really first class and excellent condition, and provides the opportunity to really accommodate just about any type of general aviation aircraft in the fleet out there. So that's a very important piece of being able to grow the airport, is your ability to accommodate anybody that wants to come to your community. So having that infrastructure there is a tremendous marketing opportunity that you have done an excellent job taking advantage of. The precision approach that you have out there is another big opportunity for you to bring people in that allows aircraft to land in just about any type of weather condition, any type of aeronautical event. So that's a big opportunity for you. And overall, it's a very well managed airfield. It's very well run, very well maintained. So that is not something we find all the time in doing this around the country. So that's always a welcome thing for us to see. The staff that's there, we found was really a bright spot for us. Very well trained. Everybody knew what their responsibilities were. While there are some challenges with the joint responsibilities of the line technicians as far as fueling aircraft as well as providing ARC services, that they're very well trained. Everybody knows what their job is. It just can create some problems during certain events that may occur at the airport. So we did make some recommendations there about increasing the staffing a little bit to have a little bit more dedicated staff to the FBO, especially the customer service aspect of the FBO, and I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. As I said, we interviewed a number of the tenants out there, all of the major tenants. We talked to them, and I would say 90% of all the comments we received were very positive. They thought that the staff did a good job of customer service in a general sense. They were very friendly. They were very informative when they needed to be. Some of the negative comments that we did receive that I think are significant were about after hours activities, both early morning departures and people arriving after hours. They were concerned about the staffing being and having people on call to handle those type of activities, which is important because not everybody flies from 9 to 5. And so having the ability for people to be on call to come out if somebody is arriving late or needs to depart early, having systems in place to handle that is very important. And I think that was really kind of one of the concerns that was expressed, that was a shortfall that needed to be addressed. Again, the need for additional dedicated customer service personnel. Some of the issues were that there were times where the phone was ringing, there was nobody there to answer the phone, or they were out on the ramp and somebody came in and there was nobody there to serve them. So we had talked to Sean a little bit about that and increasing the staffing level and have some dedicated staff, and which will be even more important with the new terminal because we do think there will be increased activity as a result of the new terminal out there. It's one of those things where within the industry that everybody likes the new shiny object out there. So I think you'll find a lot of people flying in to see the new terminal and take advantage of the new facilities and the new amenities, and that creates an opportunity for the FBO to increase their customer service levels and to kind of change the way that things have historically been done. And a lot of these things are just little small minor things, which is going out and meeting the aircraft when it arrives, somebody to marshal the airplane in, greet the passenger or the pilots when they come off the plane, develop a relationship with those customers, try to upsell them, find out what they need as far as fuel and services and how long are they going to be there. Developing that interaction is going to provide greater opportunities for the FBO to upsell to the customers, sell them more fuel, and make them want to come back to Temple or to tell their friends in the pilot community of what a great experience they had when they came to Temple. I think one of the biggest issues that we focused on that we found was a real deficiency at the airport is there really needs to be a separation between the airport and the FBO. Right now, it is one entity, but it is important to separate those two entities to where you have an airport operation that focuses on the airport and safety and marketing the airport, and then the FBO that focuses on customer service and fueling and taking care of the transient aircraft and the base customers at the airport. Also having separate financial accountings for the FBO, looking at the FBO as an independent entity. Yes, it's a right pocket, left pocket operation, but it's important to separate the two and look at each independently so you can see whether, if one side or the other is pulling the weight and doing what they need to be doing, and especially for the FBO to be able to look at the FBO as an independent entity and make sure that it is maximizing the revenue opportunities and minimizing the operating expenses and the amount of subsidy that is required or that may be required for that operation. One of the things that we have seen at some different municipally run FBOs, airports around the country, is that the FBO pays rent and pays fuel flow fees just like it was a third party FBO. And so that allows you to see the FBO is contributing to the airport operation, but it allows you to kind of see how they are doing standing on their own. And it also allows you to make decisions about capital infrastructure, whether it's on the airport side or the FBO side, if you can evaluate each as an independent operating entity. The other thing that really kind of jumped out at us is the online or digital presence of both the airport and FBO. Essentially, there is none. It is very, very difficult, if not impossible, for somebody to try to find information about the airport and the FBO when they go online. There were, some of the things that we did find, the links were broken. So people, it was a challenge for them to try to find out about the airport, the operating hours, the radio call sign, any of those things. It was very difficult to find. So I think it's important that the airport and the FBO each have their own website, independent website. It's in the aviation industry, it's gotten to the point where if you don't have a website, if pilots can't find you, you don't exist. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of what the world has come to, and it is even pervading the pilot world, because there are a number of flight planning services, and they all reference the airport and the websites for the airport. And if pilots have difficulty getting there, they're going to look at other options, and they're going to be frustrated before they even arrive. So I think that is an important aspect of your marketing the airport and the FBO going forward, is to develop independent websites for each. Another thing is, and it's going to be even more important with the new terminal coming online, is a separate entity and a separate identity for the FBO. Having its own name. I mean, right now the fuel trucks say City of Temple. Having an identity, whether it's, you call it Temple Jet Center, Temple Aviation Center, Temple Air, whatever, but having its own brand and marketing identity is going to be an important piece. One of the problems with municipally run FBOs around the country, they have a really bad reputation, and rightfully so in many, many situations. But the problem is when pilots fly in, if they know it's a municipally run operation, they go in with kind of a negative attitude. if you have a separate identity that pilots don't really know whether it's municipally run or it's a third-party FBO, you have the opportunity, you don't have that preconceived notion. You can go in and you provide that high level of customer service and attention to detail, and it's not going to matter. So having that separate name, separate identity, it could be a separate logo or even the same logo, but with a different color scheme even. But something that makes it appear as if it is a separate entity. It sounds kind of a minor issue, but it is a major point of that we have found around the country of the the problems with the negative perception of municipally run FBOs. As I said, we looked at the three options for the management of the FBO. Continuing with the airport run model, a management agreement, and a third party kind of lease and operating agreement. We looked at those. I can tell you that the one of the problems with going to any other model besides what you have now is the financial ramifications to the airport as a whole. It is a significant revenue stream for the airport, provides a tremendous opportunity for you to continue to reinvest in the airport and grow the airport. And so while that is, getting rid of that option relieves some of the risk, but some of the rewards go away as well. The challenge with a third party run FBO under a lease and operating agreement, the only revenue that the airport is going to get is going to be rent from the new terminal and fuel flowage fees. That's the only revenue you're going to get. And it's not going to grow unless that FBO grows the activity. But even then, your growth opportunities are limited. For example, if you're running the FBO and you have a good year, you market and you bring new activity in, and the airport grows by 100,000 gallons of fuel, that's probably an additional, $100,000 to $150,000 a year that goes to the airport and subsequently to the FBO. If you have a third party run FBO, they grow at 100,000 gallons. That's probably $5,000 to $10,000 to the airport. So the same amount of growth, the economics are much more limited under that type of operating agreement. Right now, there's just really not enough fuel volumes at the airport to attract a quality, experienced FBO, even without those economics as far as what would be paid to the airport. You're at, I think Sean said that you're going to be at about 500,000 gallons this year. I think your peak was in 2017 at about 570,000 gallons. Is that correct?
Just under 60.
And so that's just, most FBOs you're going to have to look to get up to about 800,000 gallons for it to be economically viable for a third-party operator to come in and make capital investment and be responsible for to have a triple net lease to where they're responsible for the expenses. You're just not there yet. And I think if there was an issue with the airport operation, or excuse me, the FBO operation, then I think that might be something that you would consider. Right now, I think that the FBO and the airport do a very good job. I think with just some tweaks and some attention to customer service, as well as the opportunities created with the new terminal, that it's the best long-term option for the foreseeable future at the airport. There is some potential opportunities for additional revenue at the airport. Again, the new terminal is going to bring some activity out there. I mentioned earlier about upselling. That is a big aspect of how FBOs kind of grow their business, because for the most part, people that are flying into the airport are going to fly into that airport. They're doing business in the area. It's not a matter of choice. There are some, recreational pilots that choose Airports just, I mean, based upon fuel prices, but for the most part, people that are coming to Temple are coming to Temple. The story I always tell is that there's an airport in South Georgia, and Home Depot flight department flew in there one day, and the airport manager went out and met with the chief pilot and said, so what do we need to do to get you to fly in here more often? And he said, listen, if I need to come here, I will come here, but you could give me fuel and it's not going to cost me to come to this airport. I'm only coming here because I have business in this area. So there's not a lot of opportunities like that. So the important thing for an FBO is to take every opportunity for every aircraft that comes in there to maximize the revenue potential through upselling them. But I have an FBO client that used to said, my job is to make the pilot feel so guilty that he's been treated so well, he feels guilty for not buying the maximum amount of fuel that he can take. And that's really what the FBO business is all about. It's a service industry. Fuel is just a commodity that comes with it. You're selling service. And I think, some attention to detail and some training of the personnel out there. There's some real opportunities for upselling on fuel, as well as some attention to some of the fees that are out there, the ramp fees, the overnight fees, that I think will provide some additional revenue opportunities out there. One of the things we talked about last night at the airport advisory meeting was, really the thing that an FBO needs to do is to focus on that everybody that lands at that airport that comes to an FBO contributes somehow to the economics of the FBO. Whether it, most of the time it's buying just a nominal amount of fuel or paying a small ramp fee, but everybody contributes because they're all benefiting from the FBO being there. And whether they want to admit it or not, they are taking advantage of the services. They're walking through the terminal. They're probably stopping at the restroom. They're probably grabbing a bag of popcorn or a cup of coffee. They don't think about it, but all of those things cost money. And it's important for the FBO to generate revenue. A little bit of revenue from everybody contributes to the ability to provide quality facilities and quality service. So we have been engaged, I guess, for a FBO business plan going forward. We're going to try to address some of these additional details and make some recommendations on how to really kind of refine some things. I think we're going to be looking in more detail about pricing structures and those type of aspects of the FBO, and hopefully provide you some additional insight to further grow the airport and the FBO. Again, I can't emphasize enough, you really have a tremendous airport out there with a tremendous infrastructure and well maintained, and it's really a great benefit to the community. And we always say, it's the gateway to any community. The airport is. It's the most important mile of pavement in any town. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to work on this project, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Overall, we've talked about the airport, seems like forever. So my question is, overall, obviously we've spent a lot of money on it, et cetera, et cetera. Is this just kind of where we are in the growing pain phase of Central Texas town that's growing like we are, or is that really an underutilized asset that, due to the city maybe not, aggressively managing it, et cetera, it could be so much more at this stage right now? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think it's a little of both, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's only so much that you can do. As I said, somebody's only flying to the Temple Airport if they've got business in the community. But at the same time, there are opportunities to create a better customer service experience and a better overall experience for the community. You never know when somebody might be flying in that's just that they're coming in to do business, and they have such a great experience and say, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to put my business. So that you find examples of that all over the country, where the airport does provide that experience that somebody says, okay, this is a key component of my business growth. I want to be here. So the airport does help you with that economic development and can provide additional economic incentives for people that want to locate in your community. But there is only so much that you can do. I think there are opportunities out there to grow the airport that will help, expand things with some additional hangars out there. We'll try to look at a little bit more as far as the demand for hangar space out there. When we were here before, we did, talk a little bit about potential hangar development out there, but really what the demand would be. I think those are things that you can incrementally grow the airport, but it's one of those things you just never know. I try to be optimistic with airports around the country, and I've seen some things that I thought, nobody's ever going to locate there, and then lo and behold, it just takes that right person at the right time that the airport can make a big difference in their decision-making process.
As a business person, that's a lot of overhead to take on without really being able to market it and bring people here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're saying I'm for it. I'm
Right.
spouting
No, I
a
understand.
little bit. It's hard, I think, if this was being run as a for-profit business, you have to look at the extra expenses, the extra people, the building, et cetera, and think that's a lot of money to be spent on a hope and a prayer.
I would say the same thing that I hear around the country when people are arguing about their rents being too high on an airport. You can say the same thing about parks and recreation. There are things that you spend money on that are benefits to the community that don't provide a direct revenue stream to the community, but they are important amenities to the community. And I think an airport falls in that category. That doesn't mean it should be a blank check, but looking at the numbers that I've seen, there's really not a substantial economic contribution to the airport on an operational basis. Yes, there are some when you come to capital projects and those type of things, but as far as on the day-to-day operating basis, I think from the numbers that Sean shared, you're pretty close. There's not a substantial annual subsidy that occurs out there. And there are some communities, even some very busy, successful airports that, there is an annual $1 million subsidy that goes on from the community to that airport, because some of the amenities that it provides, whether it's air ambulance services or flying organs in, or there are a lot of different things that go on the airport that people just don't think about. I just don't think that you can look at it on a kind of a dollar for dollar return basis, because it is an economic engine for a community, and it provides opportunities to attract industry.
I acknowledge that. We do that, and we talk all the time about we offer services, we don't sell products. So I appreciate that explanation. It's helpful.
It seems like the rebranding, marketing, and website issues are very important and not extremely costly. The bang for the buck would be high for the cost.
Absolutely. One of the first things we do when we get a project is we go online and see what information is about the airport or the FBO or about the
But
community.
you couldn't find it.
Yeah, if you can't find it, or there's broken links or whatever, it's just, and it needs to be something that's readily identifiable.
Sure, it's just like looking for a restaurant.
Right.
It's part of the world today, not 100 years ago or 50 years or whatever.
Heather can't wait to get started.
I was just thinking.
Some of it is actually in progress already, or Sean and I have spoken about some of it, so.
Well, you did such a great job rebranding and marketing for the library.
Yeah, you can see
We
the
want to see
wheels turning.
pink and turquoise out of the air.
Yes,
Sean,
already.
I mean, 3 years ago, that was a complaint with EDC. You can't find us, right? Broken link, I mean, everything you talked about. And we fixed a lot of that, brought in a new director, et cetera. We're not talking about bringing a new director. But I mean, we're just, things are just going nuts over there now. So I know it takes a combination of all things, right? And if you're missing something, that's important. You can't miss anything.
And I think that is one thing I didn't bring up. I mean, you kind of remind me, the EDC and the airport, I see a lot of communities where there is a very
Oh,
close
yeah.
relationship.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
and we talk about that.
I mean, McKinney works very well, and their airport has grown leaps and bounds in part because of that relationship between the EDC and their marketing of the airport.
There's a lot of places to land up there,
Right.
right?
A lot of alternatives, but
Right.
they've done a great job of making it, one of the primary options in the Dallas metro.
Very good.
As a side note, I was not able to make the meeting last night because of a conflict, but I did spend about 30 minutes this morning talking to the chairman of the airport advisory board, Steve Wright. He was very impressed with the presentation and the information and the direction. And in our conversation, we sort of focused around, this is a transition for the Temple Airport. If you're going to do an FBO, then you're going to have to determine how to manage it. You've made a recommendation that it's city managed, but under a separate, if you will, management team. But it is building it not for today, but for tomorrow. And there may be a point in time you build it up to a degree that you go out to a third party and there'll be interest in a third party taking it over. Maybe never. But the other side of that is the airport needing to expand its ability to handle local aviation people, because that's a lot of fuel sales, which adds to that bottom line. So from reading your report, from talking to Steve, I think we're on the right track. And I appreciate what you put into it. Thank you.
Question, what's the profit margin, putting you on the spot? What's the profit margin between general aviation fuel and jet fuel?
That's a difficult question because general aviation fuel is the FBO buys and sells the fuel. They buy it, they mark it up, and they sell it. Commercial fuel, they buy it and they essentially just, because they're buying in such volume, they just pay somebody to pump it. The airlines just pay somebody to pump that fuel. So whereas an FBO may get, we'll just throw it out, it's say $1.50 a gallon on average, as far as the margin. An airline may only be paying 3 cents a gallon for somebody to pump that fuel. They buy it at cost because they buy in such bulk. They buy it at cost. And then they just pay somebody to manage the fuel storage and then pay somebody to pump the fuel into their aircraft. So it's kind of apples and oranges. If you have an FBO that provides commercial fueling, a lot of times they just look at that, what's called interplane fuel, where they're just pumping it into a plane at some nominal margin. It could be anywhere from 3 cents to 20 cents. But they generally just do that to cover the overhead because they've got the equipment, they've got the personnel. Where they really make the money is on the general aviation fuel, where there's that, they're able to mark it up and they're able to upsell the customer. You're not going to upsell Delta Airlines to take on more fuel. They're going to take whatever they need to make it to Atlanta or Salt Lake City from Austin. It's kind of apples and oranges, but even with to take that down to just talking about the FBO,
right.
The margin on 100 low lead avgas versus jet fuel is markedly different. And it's markedly different on a couple of lines. One is the margin on avgas is generally the margin being that you're above the price above cost, when they sell it at above cost, maybe like $1 a gallon. It varies, but just for the point of example, it may be $1 a gallon, whereas jet fuel, the average may be $1.50 to $2 a gallon. So that's one component. But to take that a step further, the average purchase for avgas is probably about 15 to 20 gallons. Whereas the average purchase on jet fuel is probably 500 gallons.
Right.
So you have a higher margin plus a higher uplift. So that's the reason that marketing the airport and then the upselling is important, because it doesn't take any more labor for somebody to pump 500 gallons than 300 gallons. You still got to take the truck out there. The personnel has to be out there. It's probably another 5 minutes to pump that additional fuel once you get set up. It's not, but you've all of a sudden you could discount, you could give somebody another 20 cents off a gallon. You make it up in volume. The overall value per transaction is much greater for jet fuel than for avgas. That's the reason that you find FBOs that negotiate, they upsell fuel and they really negotiate prices, because they're looking at it from the standpoint, we want to maximize each transaction, maximize the dollar amount for each transaction. It's not necessarily about how much fuel you sell, it's how much that transaction nets you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those generalities and averages, though, don't necessarily apply to our current pricing structure for base jets, which I don't think we mark up $2. Tracy?
No, I was just using those numbers as an example.
I always have to have the opportunity to remind.
Yeah, right.
Very good prices.
Right. Okay. Council, anything else for Mr. Hodges? Okay. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Just quick on our jet fuel sales, our gross profit margin is about 24.5%.
That's okay.
And then on avgas, it is again about 20%, 21%. But much more revenue from jet fuels because additional gallons. So
Can you repeat that, Tracy?
our gross profit margin, the budget on jet fuel sales is right around 24.5%. And on avgas, it's about 21%.
I'm sorry, I should have asked you that question instead of him. He starts talking about Delta Airlines. Wait. Okay, moving on. Item number 2 is to discuss, have a discussion regarding various City of Temple boards and commission appointments, proposed amendments to the City of Temple boards and commissions policy. Ms. Llewellyn and Ms. Murray.
Mine's just really quick. I just wanted to give council a really quick update. We held board and commission interviews last week, and you all made your recommendations. I contacted everyone that we interviewed, and they all accepted the positions that you all selected them for. They were very excited. I'd love to say I twisted Ms. Krause's arm, but she was thrilled to join the Planning and Zoning Commission. She was very excited that she was even considered. With her construction background, so she was very excited. Mike Pilkington did agree to serve as a representative for the Main Street Advisory Board, which we had discussed that day as well. And then also during our discussion, or during that day, we talked about, we had interviewed several candidates who were really qualified, but we just didn't have a place for them because they didn't live in the correct district. So I'd asked Ms. Myers to put some language together for possible amendments to the current policy. So Ms. Myers.
So we're recommending that if you all want to consider a little bit more flexibility in appointing from another district, to add in the note section of to each board and commission that is at least in part appointed by district residency, a note that says if a vacancy exists and the city council is not able to identify a qualified candidate who resides within the specified city council district, that you may choose to appoint a qualified applicant who resides within another city council district to that place. So that is our recommended solution to provide a little more flexibility there. And then because we are contemplating amendments, staff just had 2 more minor ones that we wanted you to consider. One was just to clarify that on our 2 boards and commissions that do have alternates, that the alternate could fill a temporary vacancy in addition to just a board member who's absent or is conflicted out of a decision. And then finally, on the interview process, just to bring our policy in alignment with state law and a little bit more clarity that based on how we have done it in the last couple of times is to strike the line that allows you to consider interviews in executive session, because you are only able to do that for quasi judicial boards, and you guys have made a determination that you want to be consistent with how you do that. So those are our 3 recommendations.
Appreciate that. I know we dropped that on you pretty quickly, so thanks for moving quickly on that. Council, any thoughts or questions?
There's not an agenda item for the amendment, so we would need to bring that back at your next meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, the lack of flexibility that we had initially, I think it really stood out in this last round of interviews, and we had a couple of really good candidates that were just going to be left out.
Right.
And we had, we didn't have anyone to fill it, just our policy was going to leave them out. So I think this is a good move. So we'll see you on the next agenda. Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank y'all. Item 3 is to receive departmental updates from Performance Excellence, Fire, and Marketing and Communications.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be back to present an update for the Performance Excellence Department. I'm going to start off with our Performance and Analytics Division's 90-day progress. I have organized this progress by key areas. And so starting with the strategic plan, as a reminder to Council, the last time I presented to you, we were talking about some updates to the strategic plan. So that's where we discussed the addition of the 5th focus area and also the 10th goal. So there were several things that we, changes that we implemented to the strategic plan. And those were ultimately adopted with the FY22 business plan. We also began meeting with departments to start our work on the FY21 performance report. We began working on developing some strategic plan dashboards that would make it a little more convenient and easier for departments to update and manage their strategic plan progress. And then we completed updating the initiative sheets and Smartsheet to reflect the updates to the strategic plan. So those updates that we made to the actual strategic plan documents, we also had to make those in our tracking and reporting mechanism, which is Smartsheet. Then we transferred, if you'll remember, at the last time that I presented, we also talked about the difference between strategic plan initiatives and operational priorities. And so we have moved those those operational priorities out of Smartsheet, because if you remember, those were the kind of things where they didn't lend themselves to be tracked in that same way, because they were things like continue to do something, if you'll remember that. And then moving on to the next key area, internal support. I think I've said a number of times that Smartsheet has really been embraced by our organization. And so we spend a pretty good amount of time collaborating with departments on other ways that we can utilize that tool. And so those are a few things that we worked on with other departments in the last 90 days. And then finally, with the last key area, key performance indicators or KPI, we have been collaborating with departments to revise their selected KPI. So that performance, the 2020 performance report that I shared with council the last time I was before you, departments in 2020 selected a KPI that they felt would help them, make decisions and would be meaningful and representative of the work that they do. In a few cases, there were some departments that, as they kind of sat with those and worked with them, they realized that maybe they didn't provide the best information, or they really weren't all that meaningful or helpful. So we've been working with them to select others that we could begin tracking. We've also started developing out the mechanisms for them to track for FY22. And we are finally there beginning the work of analyzing our FY21 results for that performance report that will come out a little later this year. So moving to our next area, organizational development, performance management, that key area, we continue to work on implementing InPerform, which is our tool that's going to help us to manage our performance review program. We also collaborated with HR because this implementation of InPerform is in progress in developing a process for us to conduct performance reviews for this year. And then the next key area, training and development. We began developing a draft leadership development program and a training plan for our next fiscal year. And then safety, I don't know if the last time I was here, I let council know this, but we had hired a really talented safety coordinator, and he unfortunately passed away in February. And so we have completed the hiring process for that position, and the candidate will be starting in about a month or so. And then boards and commissions, I think all of you have been present at, I think most of you have been present at least one of our board and commission orientation programs. So we continued that progress in the last 90 days as well. And then employee engagement, we kicked off our annual Employee Spirit Day. So if you're here on a Friday and you see an employee wearing a A&M shirt or a Longhorn shirt, that's just one of the things we do that employees do just sort of as a way to support their teams. We also planned the Years of Service event, and as you all know, we ultimately made the decision to postpone that just because of the uptick in COVID. My hope is that we're continuing to monitor that situation. My hope is that we can maybe get that rescheduled for October. We also began planning our FY22 engagement events and activities. These are just a few new things that we are going to be implementing: a core values high five program, a mentorship program, a give thanks program. And finally, there we collaborated with our human resources department on an employee orientation and onboarding program. So that's something we'll be implementing in the first quarter of this next fiscal year. And then finally, we'll diversity, equity, and inclusion, our 90-day progress there. As you all know, we began the process of working through and developing our DEI program. We also began supporting the DEI Commission, which began their meetings in the last 90 days. And then we also had some focus on community engagement, where we began really kind of reaching out and developing those relationships with some of our community partners. And then we've also been working with other departments on developing our Youth Advisory Commission. So that's just some of the work that we did in the last 90 days for DEI. So now looking ahead, for performance and analytics, we'll be completing that FY21 performance report. We'll also continue to collaborate with departments. So in the strategic plan changes, there were some new strategic initiatives, and so we'll be working with departments to develop their implementation plans. We also have a plan to develop some live strategic initiative dashboards for our website so that we can keep our citizens up to date on our progress there as well. And we'll be working to develop new quarterly and annual reporting templates. And then we have a new position for this division that's going to be coming online in just a few weeks. And that's our performance analyst. So we'll begin that process of hiring for that position. And then we're also working on some recommendations around the way that we make incremental updates to our strategic plan and the way we make more comprehensive updates so that we actually have a more formalized process in place. And then we're also going to be working on developing a surveying program so that as we elicit not only maybe internal feedback from employees, but feedback from our community about the services that we're providing, that we make sure that our surveys are statistically valid and are, they get really elicit the information that we're looking for. So we're going to be developing that program. For organizational development, looking at the 90-day outlook, We'll be completing the implementation of Imperform, that performance management tool I told you about. We're also going to conduct staff training so employees understand how to use that tool. And then we also are going to be developing job-specific competencies so that, this will sort of be it's going to be a sort of a work in progress for a little bit because that's going to be a pretty big job. But we want to make sure that as we're evaluating our employees' performance, that we are, we have a set of sort of core competencies that we look and evaluate everyone on, but then we have some more job-specific competencies that we're rating people on as well. We've been working with departments on a plan for award and recognition programs for the new fiscal year. We'll be conducting some core values training for current staff. We're also going to present a plan, a core values plan to our leadership team. We're going to continue collaborating on our employer brand with HR and marketing. And then finally there, customer service, Brent has said it over and over, is that, we are a service-based organization. That's what we exist to do. And so customer service training is a training priority for FY22. So we're going to be working on a plan to provide that training to departments. And then finally, our diversity, equity, and inclusion 90-day outlook. We will be conducting a hiring search for the DEI manager, and we'll continue to support the commission. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about how we move forward with our diversity, equity, and inclusion program. I understand that this program is a real priority and an important priority for council. It's also an important priority for our community stakeholders and for us as staff. I think a critical key to our success is that we have a shared vision on what the goals of our program is and what the scope of our program is. So how do we get there? Well, we feel like we would really benefit from the expertise of an outside DEI consultant. And, understanding that this is important to a lot of people, we'd like to include others in the selection process. So we would have a consultant selection committee that would be made up of key stakeholders, and we'd like to have council representation as well, and of course city staff to help us choose that consultant. The consultant would begin their work with training. So we feel like that consultant, the ultimate goal of that training would be that we would have all achieve a baseline knowledge of diversity, equity, and inclusion, so that for instance, when we talk about equity, that we have a shared understanding of what that means. And then we move into the consultant would walk us through a work plan development process in which we would take the training and that we have that knowledge that we've gained from our training and really develop the goals and the scope and ultimately that shared vision that I mentioned, and we would do that through this process. Finally, we'd move to selecting the DEI manager. So, utilizing that shared vision so that we understand what the goals and the scope of our program is. I think it's really going to give us some clarity on the knowledge and skills and experience that we want our DEI manager to have. And, our goal is to have a really inclusive and open hiring process so that we include key stakeholders, of course, council and city staff. Ultimately, the goal is, again, our goal is that we have that shared vision and that this program is successful. And I am happy to answer any questions.
Go back one.
Yes, sir.
Talk faster than I can read.
Is there a time frame that you have in mind from going from point A to point Z, so to speak?
I think we want to move with intention, but not haste. We want to make good decisions, and so I don't know that we have a set time frame, but it is something that is a priority for me at this point to begin this process.
How's the consultant budgeted for?
It's not at this point.
Tracy's magic.
Tracy's magic, yes.
Council, any questions for Ms. Hoppins?
We have discussed available funding for it.
I agree with Stacy. I'd rather move slower than move forward, kind of knee-jerk reaction if you have to move forward, get somebody hired, and, you know, on the ground, so to speak. I appreciate the thought process, and again, slower is better. So everybody's on board, on the same page, marching to the same music. So
Shared vision.
very much so. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I know.
Did they 79 now, Gloria?
No, 73.
That thing lies.
I was hoping there wasn't 73 slides. I'm not ready for that. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for allowing me to have a few minutes at the fire department this afternoon. So I want to go over our calls for service so far this year, and this is up through the end of August. And this goes back to the fiscal year, so it's from October 1 until the end of August. We've had about, or right at 12,823 calls by the end of August. And you can see the breakdowns around there. About 3/4 of these are emergency calls, with about 1/4 of them being non-emergency calls. And most of those non-emergency calls end up in the good intent and service calls area. Typically, those are like fire alarms and unlocking car doors and things along those lines. By stations, these numbers you'll notice are a little bit higher. These are the actual responses. And the reason why there's a difference between the calls for service and the responses is some of our calls actually get multiple vehicles going on it. So like a structure fire, when we get one of those, we'll have 6 vehicles responding. And so that's why you'll see those in there. Same with a car wreck where we have to cut someone out of it or those types of things. So you'll get a multiple unit response, and that's why the higher number. But as of the end of August, we ran about 15,000 calls, actually made 15,000 responses with our apparatus. This is up again this year, and we're seeing that trend continue to go. It looks like we're going to be well over 14,000 calls for service this year, and over 16,000 responses this year. And that will be some of the highest numbers we've ever ran in Temple, that in the history that I can find, at least.
I was looking at Uri was February
Yes.
and August is not too far behind.
So in February, our normal year is right around 1,000 calls. And we ran right around 1,000, well, around 800 calls the week of the ice storm. So we almost ran a month's worth of calls in 7 days. When I tell you we were busy, we were really busy. We literally had trucks that would leave the station and wouldn't be back for 6 or 8 hours because they were bouncing between either car wrecks or reported fires or electrical shorts or water shutoffs. And like I say, it was an extraordinarily busy week. So, and that was on top of doing water distributions and some of the other tasks that we had. So February was a really busy month. Quite honestly, you know, I look at this year, and this has been a really exceptional and strange year for us, is kind of the best way I can put it. Between, January, we ran our normal number of calls, but still ran the COVID clinic. And then February, we did the winter storm. And then March, we got back into COVID again and kind of continued the winter storm. We've just been really, really busy and in unusual ways from where we normally are. So kind of an update on our business plan progress for this year for 2021. So all of these items have been completed and are installed and functional. The only thing we're still working on this list is the master plan and the standards to cover. That is underway. Y'all should have gotten an email from me this week with a survey. That is part of that. And so we are moving along. We anticipate the consultant will be in town probably in October now. to do some in-person interviews with folks. And then we're hoping to finish that up by November, December timeframe and have that master plan completed. And part of that will be, of course, them coming and giving a report to you all at one of these sessions. I'm very happy to report back to the winter storm. We've finally gotten the last two of our bigger generators online. They were just completed a couple of weeks ago. And you can see this was the one here on the bottom was one of our old generators. And it would run just a few plugs and stuff within the station. We couldn't actually operate the full station on it. The ones we've replaced it with, and thanks to Belinda's help and all of her crew's help getting these in, but we replaced it now. We can run the entire building off of these new generators. So no more just one or two things operating. We can actually operate and function the full fire station. And we've got the new generators, I think, at every station now. So we're in pretty good shape for the next winter storm.
Natural gas.
Yes, sir. And so 6 of them are natural gas, 2 of them are propane, because we don't have gas at the building. So 7 and 8 are the propane ones. And just in case you haven't heard, the Winter Almanac is calling for a winter similar to last year, or the Farmer's Almanac is calling for a winter similar to last year. And they actually predicted last year's winter as well. So I'm hoping that they're wrong. But I am telling you, I'm buying a lot of wood this year. Another one of our projects that we had this year was actually was a carryover from the year before, but was slowed down because of COVID is, of course, the Truck One. Y'all were at the push-in ceremony for that back in June. It's been a really fantastic vehicle for us. It actually made its very first structure fire about 2 weeks ago and performed absolutely fantastic. And the crews are loving it. The citizens are loving it. And so we're really appreciative to everybody that played a role in that.
Isn't there something special about this one?
As I say, do you want me to tell you about that one? So my grandson is turning 2 here in a couple of weeks, and he is absolutely, and through no prompting by me, he is absolutely crazy about fire trucks. And so the very first fire truck that my grandson ever got to sit in was this one.
Oh.
So, and he absolutely had a blast in it and got to play driving it in the whole 9 yards. So he had a lot of fun. We did set him up on the front. One thing I don't think I told Brim, but so you see the light on front that rotates. Everybody's kind of seen that. So we turned that on while he was up there. He did not care for that. So, but he liked everything else about it. So, but yeah, so this one's very special to me as well, because like I said, my grandson really enjoyed that. And I did just get a picture today too. Oh, she's not listening.
I'm listening.
Oh, so
There's other babies who sat in this for the first time too.
Right. So I actually got a inner office mail right before I came over, like literally 5 minutes before I came over, I think from your son.
Yes, Troy drew you a picture of the truck.
And I say, it looked like a fire truck. And I couldn't tell if one of those had really bad hair, so it might have been me. But anyway, so that is up on our bulletin board over at the fire station now too. So it's a very popular truck in town. We've received a ton of great compliments on it. So thank you all for allowing us to get that.
Where was the first call where it went?
Oh,
That's okay.
Boy, I don't remember. I think it was actually a medical call.
Oh,
The fire dome.
So,
So
so the very first fire call?
Yeah, because it was, it's
So
a
that was
tall
up here.
truck.
Yeah, that was up here in Northtown. It's actually just a single story residence, but they were the first ones there.
I
so.
see. Okay.
Jennifer and I were driving downtown Saturday night, and they were going somewhere. They came up behind us, and that is an impressive piece of machinery in the rearview mirror. Right?
With that thing spinning
It is-
too.
yeah.
Like,
So
It is huge.
so it's very well lit up. That front rotating light is extraordinarily annoying. But that's the reason why it's there, because cars are built so tightly these days that the sound just doesn't penetrate like it used to. So we have to get your attention any way we can. We found those they're called roto rays. They actually work very well. And believe it or not, they were actually made back in the 60s. There's one company in the world that makes those, and they started in the 60s, and they kind of went away for a few years out of vogue, and now they're coming back again because of the way cars are constructed. All right, so just some more of what we've been doing. So we've developed and implemented both a chaplaincy program and a CISM program for our employees, and all of our employees, including myself and all the chief officers, have gone through a critical incident stress management class. so that we know how to activate the team, we know how to activate the system, and everybody's completely aware of how to get help and where to get help and what the processes are. And we have had some members take us up on that. And so it's really a great program. I'm getting a lot of great feedback from the crews on it. And so again, it's something we're very proud to have gotten started here for our folks. We did complete baseline physicals on all of our crew members, and that was part of a grant that happened that we were able to perform that on. I can't go into a lot of details, but we did find at least 4 fairly significant medical issues that our crew members have been able to take care of. One possibly life-altering issue that was found very early, treated, and they believe is going to have no effect from this point forward. So those really came in. If they had went to where it was discovered through normal processes and normal pains and bumps and all of that, it could have been a very bad turnout for that person. So again, those baseline physicals were very critical for us. We've gotten all of our annual testing for our ladders, our hose, and everything else completed. And it was underway, but now it's actually completed. We had our first TCFP inspection, which is the Texas Commission on Fire Protection. That was done with all of our new software we've acquired in the last couple of years. It was by far the best and the quickest inspection ever. The inspector was on site for 3 hours, when he's normally on site for 2 days. He was able to review everything electronically. We got a thumbs up, passing with first time with no deficiencies, and he was on his way. So the new software very much paid off for both us and him in staff hours. We have been able to restart our seat installations. The state had stopped those for several months, and we have gotten back to doing that. We do that every Monday night, and we've been averaging somewhere between 4 and 6 people a week for the last few weeks now. And so we're glad to see that process going again and keeping the kids safe here in town. And then I've completed my Certified Fire Executives program put on by the Texas Fire Chiefs Association. Jonathan did his first year. I completed, and Jonathan did his first year back in June. Next week, Jonathan and Landy will be going to San Marcos. Jonathan will be finishing his, and Landy will be taking his first year of that, and then he will finish up next June. And we are just going to slowly walk our command staff through this program until we get down to some of the other officers. But this will be a new requirement for us. As you promote the chief, you will be going through this academy. And it's a 2-week, 80-hour class that's put on by the Texas Fire Chiefs. They go over everything from budgeting to writing policies, and basically just take care of a lot of different chief functions and administrative functions. I think it's got a lot of value for our folks. So anyway, that process is underway, and again, I think it's going to be a great benefit to the department. So fire investigations, they've been very busy this year. We've had 35 fires that have been investigated. Now that doesn't mean we've just had 35 fires, just 35 that the fire marshal's office came in and investigated. 15 of those were ruled unintentional. 20 were either intentional or questionable. We currently have 9 open inspections. 4 of those are active. We have 3 cases that are filed with the district attorney and have actually made arrests on. We do have 1 active warrant. I actually think we may have picked that person up last week. And so that would actually be 5 arrests on there, but I'm pretty sure we've gotten that person in custody now. Inspections wise, 697 on completed inspections. We've done 289 construction related permits, and then 42 of those never leaving us food trucks inspections going on. And so we've had quite a few of those. And so another program we were able to do in late June and early July was our junior fire cadet program. Again, great program, about 65 students per session. We did the graduation ceremony up at the CAC back in July, and Mayor came and spoke there at it, and just a lot of good compliments from the parents. It's been a very successful program. We've been running it for over 20 years, and we're very happy to be able to continue that. And we have folks that literally are waiting by their phone or computer the day we announce it to call and sign up. And it usually takes us less than a week to fill up the classes. And then we almost always have a waiting list of 20 to 30 people. So very successful program. And I say everybody really enjoys it.
Lots of returning people every year.
Yes, very much so. A lot of returning folks. And we'll actually get folks who'll start right around, I believe it's the age of 9, and then we keep them through the end of high school. So they can go through the program until they're 13, and once they hit high school, we bring them back as counselors to help out with the newer students. So again, very, very successful program. We've been doing a lot of departmental training. You see, we've been at some of our local industrial facilities around taking tours. Again, those are very beneficial to our crews. It's good for us to see these places before they're on fire, before they have an emergency. So we kind of know their processes and know our way around. So we're not trying to figure it out in the middle of the night or when there's an emergency event going on.
That's really good, really good.
Yes, ma'am. So just some of the different classes, I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but we've actually, and that total's up now, we're over 16,000 hours for this year on our training hours. Fire Academy just started this week. We've got 12 students in it, and 2 of those are employees. And so our Fire Academy, the fire part of it, will finish up in December. They'll start EMT in January. And then they will fully graduate in March. So they'll be fully able to be certified as firefighters come March of 2020. So our COVID response continues. And obviously this started back in 2020 is where we really started the response in earnest. I've been lucky to add Jennifer Henniger, and I think we've talked to her a couple of times. I think everybody's kind of has met her as she's been here. She's just on her 6 months now, and she's doing a fantastic job for us. But she's helping out with the planning and the reporting and all of the advisory stuff with that and helping me out on that now. But we continue to distribute PPE and test the city employees, and we are still testing city employees. We really had an odd thing happen. The state emergency group has decided not to distribute rapid tests anymore. They're saving them all for the school districts so that they can test their students. But the bad part is none of the school districts are testing their students. They're sending them all to us. And so we're trying to work that out with the state, and there's been several different departments and counties and groups talking to the state, trying to get them to change their mind, because we were testing a lot of students through our drive-through testing sites with the rapid testing. So we're trying to work that out with them, and we're trying to, if we can't get that done through the state, we're going to try to do a workaround with DISD and BISD, where maybe we can get them to request a test and then send them to us. So that's a project still in works. We've been working with our medical director and the city administration on the policies and return to work guidance. So all through this, we've had Dr. McGraw, and she's been working with the infection control doctors at Baylor Scott and White to make sure that we're following the latest CDC guidance. And if you think that we send out a lot of those guidance policies, you're correct, because they change a lot. It is really hard to keep up with the CDC guidance. We've literally had guidance change from one day to the next as we've gone through this pandemic. We continue to operate some of the micro clinics for vaccines for targeting some of our populations. We have one clinic tonight over at the LULAC meeting at the Santa Fe Depot, so we'll be there with our National Guard partners that are going to be doing that. And then we're also working with National Guard on both testing and vaccines. So that's been a great resource that's been made available to us this last couple of months, and so we've been utilizing them quite a bit. And we have, I think, 4 different vaccination sites set up over the next month and a half. So we will be out there administering vaccine. We're still not seeing a big demand for it, but we are out there and at least offering them. So they are available to folks. So unfortunately, I still have to talk about my 2 bad situations that I've had go on this year. So we had the fire at Station 5, which I think everybody remembers, and I would love to forget, but anyway, it's underway. And we took that opportunity with the help of Bryn and Tracy and Belinda to also perform a remodel that we had scheduled on the building. So in addition to updating the station and repairing the fire damage, we're also creating, and you can kind of see down the hallway, we're creating a hallway and separate bedrooms where that was a big open dorm room where everybody just slept in one big room. We're actually giving the crew some privacy there. So there's 6 new bedrooms going in there in that same space. We're also upgrading the flooring, and we're upgrading our fire alarm system and let's see.
Door access control.
Yep. So we're adding door access control. So we'll have swipe cards in there. And so just a lot of different upgrades that's been needed. So, and additionally, this building got re-roofed as well, which is kind of a good and bad story. The bad part is we had to do it because of the fire, and it had just been done, 2 months before.
Yeah.
So it's got its second new roof this year. So
The kitchen as a result.
yeah, and a new kitchen. So, and right now our big holdup is we're still waiting on kitchen cabinets, at least as of Monday.
They were supposed to be in, I think, today.
Okay, awesome. Station 3, I don't have any pictures of the mold because the pictures aren't very exciting. It's just pictures of ductwork. But we've been kind of fighting some HVAC issues off and on for years. And the really what kind of, I guess, triggered our investigation a little bit more is we got a kind of a musty, damp odor that we just wouldn't go away finally. And so we contacted Belinda. She had some folks come in and do some mold testing, and sure enough, we had the 2 different types of mold in there. So we are doing that remediation, and so we've got a lot of things going on at Station 3 as well. Again, another station due for a remodel, and so we're performing both at the same time. But we're going to be replacing all of our HVAC units and ducting. We're going to be installing some spray foam in the attic. Just the way our attic was insulated is part of what caused our mold issue, and so we're fixing that. We're removing all the carpet and vinyl tile, and we're going back with just colored concrete. That's a lot better for us and our type of environment and our use on it. Firefighters are very hard on normal office type stuff, so we're going back with that colored concrete or stained concrete. We will be redesigning and remodeling the kitchen area. Again, individual bedrooms with a study area for folks when they're studying for vocational testing, and then obviously card access readers as well. Try to get to where we don't need an individual key. Everybody just uses their ID badge and swipe card. And that's what I've done. So questions?
Chief, on the slide that talked about number of responses, did you relate that, or can you, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but can you relate that minus February, which is obviously weird, to growth in the town? Is it reasonable considering the growth in the town, or are we getting more calls that we not based on growth?
No, so I would say that most of our additional calls, other than that flyer in February, are due to the growth.
Okay.
And so part of it, like at Station 7 here, you can see they've had 1,100 calls this year. That is the highest number of calls that they've ran since I've been here. And that's really up significantly this year. But if you think about it, they're out on West Adams.
Right.
That's where a lot of the growth is going on. The other one we're seeing a big boost in is Station 4, which is down on Watersbury. And again, another one of our big growth areas. So we're seeing that, and we're seeing this. So it's definitely tied to the growth. And then also Station 1, I mean, 4,200 calls. Station 1's busy. Those folks say they run a lot. But again, I think it's because of the growth and the return to the downtown area. And it just kind of points to the success we're having down here in this area of town, the number of calls that are happening there. So all 3 of those stations, and actually Station 3 also is up quite a bit. And again, I see this as all growth. Back, and I think we talked about this maybe the last time I did a report, but back a few years ago, I think it was 17, we removed some of the low acuity emergency medical calls to where the fire department doesn't go. Ambulance still goes, EMS still goes, so there's still a response. It just fire doesn't go. And we took about 2,500 to 3,000 calls off of our call volume per year by doing that. But we have gained those back in the last 4 years and added additional to that. So the capacity that we got by stopping to go to some of those low issue calls. And so when I talk about that, I'm talking about like ingrown toenails, sunburns, a cough that's been going on for now's not a good time to talk about a cough, but like a cough that they've had for 3 months. Again, calls that really we don't need a fire truck on, they're not life-threatening, they're not emergent. Those are the types of calls that we quit going to with the fire trucks, but we still send the ambulance. And so we've seen those calls grow back, and I think we will just continue to see that rise as new families come to town, new homes are built, new businesses are built. We're just going to see that continue to rise. All right. Anything else?
Mayor, I'd just like to thank Chief Mitchell. He's really responded on the COVID testing and the vaccine on the events we're having. We've already got it lined up for 3 this month. So.
Oh, good. Very good. Thanks, Chief. Ms. Bates.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to present our quarterly update on behalf of marketing and communications. The first thing that I wanted to go over was our major accomplishments in the last quarter. You guys may recall that we've been working with Cooksey Communications for about a year, and we have successfully completed their scope of work, which, just as a reminder, was for them to complete a strategic communications plan for us. They also completed a community engagement plan as well as a crisis communications plan. And you can see my fine print on the bottom. We will be sharing these with leadership team first, and then we'll make them accessible for all city staff and make sure that everyone is familiar with them. One piece of the puzzle that is still remaining is our policies and procedures, and we're working actively through those regularly to update those, and then we'll share everything all at one time. You may also recall that I mentioned last update how we were going to be working on a Let's Talk Temple webpage. Let's Talk Temple is really meant to be an online community engagement platform or website. Right now it is active. So if you go to letstalktemple.com, it is live. I do have some additional things that I want to add to it and make it a little bit more robust, but currently what's on there, you can find out more information on all of our capital improvement projects, any public meetings that are happening, and neighborhoods is our neighborhood planning initiative. There's other things on there, other little tiles that we have for downtown project updates and different things like that. So ultimately, we want to push everything on here that is either an engagement opportunity or a project update type deal. Another exciting project we've been working on is Epic recruiting strategy in partnership with Chief and his team over there at PD. Epic Recruiting is actually going to be on site here in Temple at the end of September for a few days. They're going to be getting lots of videography, lots of photography that we'll be able to use on all of our recruiting campaigns and all of our collateral. And just as a reminder, their scope of work includes a full recruitment brand and just whole redesign, or not really a redesign, but a creation of a recruitment brand for the PD, as well as a messaging strategy and a dedicated recruiting website that'll be separate from the police department's website they have now. And then Epic will also be doing an online recruiting campaign, a digital campaign, and they'll also provide metrics and analytics from that campaign. So that way, as we move forward and continue our recruiting efforts, we can look at those and see how the ads performed and different things like that. Do we keep it the same? Do we change it? Another really exciting project that we are just beginning is a strategy and action plan for the Railroad and Heritage Museum. And you might be thinking, well, what about Hunden? Aren't they doing that? So Hunden is completing an overall placemaking strategy for Temple, and the work they're doing is extremely important. However, we're working really closely with Parks and Recreation to kind of take a deeper dive and look at some other things that Hunden maybe isn't looking at. We are going to be doing a SWOT analysis. We've already done that with the railroad team. And then some other things, these aren't the only things that'll be in that plan, but some things it'll include is kind of reviewing their membership program and then developing a marketing and fundraising strategy. And
What's
yes, ma'am.
SWOT again?
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Okay. I don't remember that at all. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then again, collaboration is going to be the most important thing as we work through this plan. We want to work together with Parks and Recreation Department leadership and the railroad team. Another project we have is for destination marketing. And there, if you recall, is our tourism marketing essentially. they thankfully have been able to kick off their new website project, which is really exciting. For this project, we really want to enhance the user experience on the website right now. If you go to discovertemple.com, that's the website that I'm referring to that's going to receive that facelift. We want to increase functionality and just add just a more appealing aesthetic. And we are working with a company, they're called Simple View. If you're really into it, feel free to go to their website and kind of look at some of the other stuff they've done for other cities. It's really, really impressive. They have an amazing back end. Hotels can get in and like add specials, and it's going to be really, really amazing and transformative for our tourism marketing. So as far as timeline on that goes, March 2022 is when all of that should be, when this website project should be complete. So Simple View has a really aggressive timeline for us, and we've been able to keep up with that so far. Okay, I promise I'm not going to cry, but we have won 6 awards in marketing and communications in the last quarter, and I just wanted to share some of those with you guys. So there's 3 associations that we won the awards with, and I'll just go through each of those. NAGC stands for National Association of Government Communicators. For NAGC, we placed first for community engagement branding, and that is in regards to the Love Where You Live neighborhood planning initiative that we developed, the brand that we developed for that program. And then an award of excellence for our Discover Temple dining brochure that I think you have all probably seen. TAMIO is the next association, Texas Association of Municipal Information Officers. With TAMIO, we recently attended their conference 2 weeks ago and accepted our awards. We won Award of Excellence for Best Media Relations for our city's communications planning. We received an Award of Honor in the marketing category for our campaign that we did for Sir Temple. And then we received an Award of Honor in the print category for our business plan in the reports category of that. And then 3CMA stands for City County Communications and Marketing Association. We placed first, and they call those Savvy Awards. So we received a Savvy Award in the graphic design and photography category for our Welcome Home Guide. And then what I'm most proud of is the Diamond Award that we received. And the Diamond Award, they basically take all of the Savvy Award winners from multiple categories and pick the best of all the first place winners. So we received the Diamond Award for the Welcome Home Guide. I'm really excited about that. I know. And we hope to win lots more. We have so many amazing things going on. It's hard not to want to write an award for everything that we do, but it's just a testament to the amazing team that I have and all of the amazing work that we're able to accomplish every day.
How many full-timers do you have in that office that are part of the communications team? That I'm not talking about your information officer or anything, but as far as people that are building sites and
websites,
photography,
probably 3 for sure, but maybe 5 or 6 depending on. So the way that I have it broken out is destination marketing, and they have 5.5, and then communications and public relations, they're more media, PIO things, writers and stuff like that. There are 3 full-time there. And then in marketing and digital media, which is website, social advertising and things like that, there are 3 there.
and that last 3, are they mostly the ones that have?
For the Welcome Home Guide specifically, or just the
All of
awards
it,
in general?
all of it, or is it all
It's
hands on deck,
definitely all
everybody?
hands on deck.
Okay,
Mhm.
gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Well, good job.
Thank you. So for the next 90, you have probably all heard, you guys approved it, thankfully, of our talent attraction strategy. So we are all very excited to get this started. It's similar to the police department recruiting strategy that we're working on for the PD, except it's specifically focused for attracting talent for the city. Again, this is not everything that plan will hold, but they will be developing an employer brand for us. Stacy touched on that a little bit earlier, and also a recruiting and messaging strategy. So when we get ready to put up billboards or magnets on the back of the fleet, what is it going to say? What is our look going to be, and that kind of thing. We really want to attract and retain the best talent, and we want to become an employer of choice. And we think that, well, we know that this is going to help us succeed And then the timeline for that is 3 months. We recently chose the vendor. We completed the RFP process, and they have said it will take them 3 months. So that'll be starting soon, kicking off soon, and shouldn't take very long to complete. So that's really exciting. Okay, so I mentioned that I attended Tameo a couple weeks ago, and when I was at Tameo, I attended a session called Short and Long-Term Strategies for Reaching Diverse Audiences. And in that session, it was a really, really good session, but in that session, there was a city that talked about how they recently created a diversity communications and outreach plan. And with the sort of direction that we're heading, I think that this is going to be a really important plan for us to develop here at Temple. And I've spoken to Stacy about it as well. So we'll definitely collaborate with the DEI initiative as well. Some of the things that the plan will include are a language access strategy. So what are our tactics going to be to make sure that we're reaching audiences whose primary language is not English? An internet access strategy. So people who don't have immediate access to Wi-Fi or to internet at all, how can we reach them? And then just lots of other tactics to ensure that we're reaching the most residents as we can, and being as equitable as possible there. So the next thing that we hope to implement in the next 90 days is our leadership media training. And I've spoken to y'all briefly about this before. We developed a media training program, and it has an internal and an external component. This is really the internal part of that. So what the vision is to train city leadership and council, if y'all would love to indulge, on ways to deal with the media, basically. And in that program, there's lots of things that we'll cover, but just some highlights again. We'll review the current communication policies and policies as it relates to dealing with the media. We'll go over, how to develop key messages, how to stay on track with those key messages when you're talking to the media, and even how do you tie those key messages back to the strategic plan. And then also provide some interview tips and how to, feel confident in an interview, and even use techniques to help the interview be as effective as possible. And then if you would really want to go for it, we will offer on-camera training that is not mandatory, but can be really helpful if you take part in that. I wanted to touch on the community support policies that we are developing. And this is a really, really large scale project. It does include, including city manager's office, multiple city departments, I think have all been sort of touched on this a little bit. And it will address lots of things. It's going to be a really great policy, but some highlights I wanted to point out was city sponsorships, whether that's us sponsoring an event in the community, or us asking people to sponsor us for one of our events. Community advertising. So again, if that's us placing an ad in an organization's publication, or purchasing a table, or anything like that, or something as simple as banner use, which doesn't really sound like there's a lot that goes behind that, but there is, and so we're addressing that as well. And much more. Destination event strategy. So now we're into destination marketing. So one of the really exciting things that we're working on is developing a destination event strategy in partnership with Kevin and his team. This strategy is going to help us to define some event values and why are events important to Temple? What do we want to make sure we include in our events and that type of thing. Also, it'll identify some key opportunities for the events team, as well as a potential list or calendar of event opportunities as well. And then some marketing strategies with an action plan to make sure that we are planning events and focusing on events that will help to generate tourism into Temple. And then the timeline on this project, we have not issued the RFP yet, but I'm confident that in the next 90 days, we will have done that and have a firm identified for this project. So also as it relates to destination marketing, we recently had a vacancy in one of our sales and marketing positions. We have 2 of those positions here at the city. And the position that is currently vacant, we thought it was a good opportunity to take a look at the way that position was functioning before, and if there was some room for improvement. And so previously the position was focused on bringing local business to the Mayborn Center, really primarily. And we really want to elevate that position, and we've increased the salary a little bit. So I think we'll get a higher candidate by doing that. And we will have this position focused on bringing in new business, and not just to the Mayborn Center, but the Mayborn Center would definitely be the focus, but also not the sole focus. So this is a really exciting opportunity for us, I think, to make a big difference in our sales and to increase revenue in the hotel motel fund. Okay, I think this is my second to last slide. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was some Collateral project updates for destination marketing. So some updates that they are completing currently are the Adventure Temple and Taste of Temple marketing brochures. It's just our annual update of those. The Adventure Temple is just the things to do in Temple, and then Taste of Temple is all of our locally owned restaurants, not really a focus on the chains or anything. And then they're updating a tear-off map that apparently the hotels love. And so we're just kind of updating that with our new brand and updating some things on there. And we also share it with any groups that come into town, like sports tournaments or other meetings and conferences and things like that. And then new Collateral that we're working on, which is super exciting, are, excuse me, we're doing 3 one-pagers. We're doing a one-pager for all downtown restaurants. We're doing a one-pager for restaurants in Temple, and then a one-pager on the different things to do in Temple. And again, you know, when there's a group coming in, like I think we recently had a teacher group who was from out of town at the Mayborn Center, we make fulfillment bags or goodie bags for them. And those are the kinds of things that we would stuff into those goodie bags for groups that are coming into town. There was a group, a Model T group, that requested a driving tour of the historic district, which is kind of cool. And I think that that can be used in lots of other places, but that's nearly finished. They're coming, I think, in a month or two. Another project that we're going to be working on finalizing is the downtown parking map. You all have probably seen, the one that I saw was probably really useful for city planning and downtown planning and for engineers and things like that. But to the general public, it was pretty difficult to read. And I think it was a downtown business stakeholder who had requested a parking map, and that was the only one that we had. And so it kind of triggered a thought that we probably need to do a more stylized version that's easier for the community and for people coming downtown to read. And so we are working on that. And then downtown sidewalk decals. So basically really big stickers that are made to stick down on concrete to increase walkability downtown and kind of help direct people. You know, you're 30 steps away from a really great burger or whatever, and putting them down at the plaza, so that way they know there's a market trail back there, and then leading them to the food truck, to the yard food truck plaza, and then even some kind of in the core downtown area. And I think that is it, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council?
This is always my favorite.
Thank you.
You're my favorite too, this season. Itchy, sorry.
Cover them all.
Love everyone. Love everyone.
That's great. You guys are
Everybody,
really, you know, with this kind of work and the TPC work, you know, that collaboration, you guys have been working. So
We've come a long way, that's for
you
sure.
have, and it shows. So good job.
And
Thank
all
you.
the honors, Heather, that is so.
It is award season, so I'm not going to be winning 6 every quarter
Do you have
or
each
every
down
biannual. So, but yeah, we're very excited about that.
It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Probably. Very good. Anything else before we move into executive session? All right, so item number 4 is to receive a briefing from the city attorney on a contract issue regarding Parks and Recreation and Recreation Building. So at this time, the council will enter into executive session to discuss item number 4. The time is currently 4:15. I guess that's pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071. The city council will meet in executive session to discuss and receive advice regarding a matter of attorney-client privilege. No